I was running a real estate team. I was becoming a Keller Williams franchisee, getting in the laundromat business, starting a mobile app company. I was doing a lot of different things at the same time. That was a big learning on what not to do.
Welcome back to another episode of Growth Under Pressure. I'm your host, Eric Josovitz, and today we have Ken Wimberly. He's a real estate investor, a veteran, now a franchise owner of Laundry Luv, also a heavy entrepreneur. Ken, welcome to the show.
Eric, thanks for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Same here, man. So give us a little bit of your backstory. How did you go from the Navy, to being an entrepreneur and now owning a laundromat?
Oh, it's been a journey. I'll tell you that. But the Navy happened. I was in college when 30 years ago, when we went to war with Iraq during Gulf War I. And so during that, I decided to leave college, enlisted in the Navy, and go serve our country. And then came back, got out of the Navy, back to college, finished my degree. I got a finance real estate degree and always had an interest in real estate, but I'd interviewed at a few real estate companies out of college and no one seemed to be hiring. So I ended up working in the insurance investment field for a number of years, doing really estate planning and financial modeling as a spreadsheet junkie, doing that kind of thing. And I still today, I'm a spreadsheet. I love to model and forecast things. Anyway, I did that for a few years, but in college, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. And so this food was incredible. It was one of the most incredibly poorly run places I'd ever seen, but the food was dynamite. And my buddy and I from the Navy, he also worked there for a while as a driver. And we said, man, we could open one of these. We could kill it. And we got with the family. We kind of licensed their name. They didn't have a franchise, but we licensed their name. Our plan was we were going to open up 5 units on our own, and then we were going to help them to systematize everything and help them to go franchise the brand. That was our grand plan. And that didn't exactly work in that we opened our first one. I knew nothing about real estate at the time, absolutely nothing. And we ended up choosing a location that we thought was ideal because of proximity, but there were all kinds of things wrong with it from a real estate perspective. But namely, it was, 2.5 times larger than we needed. And the landlord said, look, I'm not going to subdivide this. And we didn't know how to negotiate with them. We didn't even have a commercial realtor working on our behalf, had a residential realtor working for us. And anyway, we made a lot of real estate mistakes going into that deal. And so the space that was so big, it caused us to have more employees, more overhead, more computers, more equipment, more everything. And that was ultimately our downfall because our business was increasing month over month over month, but our debt was so high from the get-go that 18 months in, we were just feeling buried and we didn't really see a path out. So that was a huge lesson in many things, including humility and hubris. And, from thinking, oh, I got this, we got this all figured out. We didn't have advisors. We didn't even know to seek advisors really back then or have the foresight to go seek that. And we made a lot of mistakes and it was hard. We had to walk in and tell people we were shutting the business down and, they're losing their livelihood. We filed bankruptcy, man. I was 30 years old and filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That was a rough period of time. And then, so anyway, kind of pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps. I ended up a year later. I worked in the restaurant business for another year because that's what I knew at the time. And then a year later, ended up getting into the real estate business and got into that and started doing land brokerage. This was late 2002. Got in, started doing land brokerage deals for a small family partnership. Got good at that. It was interesting when I was interviewing with the guy. He said, look, Ken, he said, I'm a small family owned shop. He said, I'm not like a big company. You're not going to get a salary. You're not going to get a draw against future income. So you're kind of just going to be working on your own efforts here. He said, it's probably going to take you 12 months to make any real money in this business. And you need to bring your own computer. You'll give you a desk and a phone. You need to bring your own computer and man, for some reason I said, sign me up. That sounds great. And it was true to his word. It was 11 months before I closed my first deal. And I've still got a copy of the check somewhere around here. And it was like, I think $1,837 is what I made in that first commission payment. But I had spent all this time just grinding and networking and talking and learning over this 11 months. And a month later, I closed my first good sized deal and I made $20,000 in one deal. I said, now we're talking. This could go somewhere. And so that took off. The second year in business, I made over six figures, and then did better the subsequent year and continued growing that business. And anyway, started scaling a big real estate business, started buying and investing in some real estate on my own. I got recruited into the Keller Williams ecosystem in 2009, which is really odd. I wanted nothing to do with the residential real estate company. But some people would come to me via some influential folks that I respected, and decided to take a shot at that opportunity. And it was really one of the best decisions I could make, because I learned so much about business from Keller Williams and the people around it. Now, to this day, I still don't look at KW as a great commercial real estate company, but man, they were really, really good about teaching people about entrepreneurship and business. And so I learned a great deal about that. I ended up, becoming one of my best friends, came out of that business. And he and I have invested in deals together, and he's been a great mentor and influence in my life. And then through that, it led me to ownership of a Keller Williams franchise. And then that led me to a couple of markets that I'd never been in before, which was Abilene and San Angelo, Texas. That led me to investing in those markets, and that led me into starting a laundromat and owning the laundromat business. So it's just interesting. You never know what a conversation will do for you, what saying yes to an opportunity will do for you, and just opening those doors. And so, that's the long way of how I eventually made it to the laundromat business.
So insightful. I love how you didn't just pick one route, stick with it, and stay with it. A lot of times someone picks a career and they stay, let's say real estate brokerage, and they're a broker for the rest of their life. They build a team. I feel like you just let the wind take you, from a restaurant, the Navy, to owning, just licensing a restaurant, a pizza restaurant, saying, hey, restaurant's really tough. Then going into, I assume you got your real estate license after that.
Yeah, I got my real estate license in 2002. And 2 years later, I went and got my broker's license. Back then, I think now you've got to be an agent for 5 years before you get it. Back then, it was 2 years. And so I went ahead and got my broker's license, even though I didn't need it at the time. It just seemed like a good box to check. So I got that. And then a couple years later, I did need it because the people I was working with, they said, look, Ken, you're starting to invest in deals, do deals on your own. It doesn't really fit our model. So you may want to go start your own deal, which I did. And so, it's just seeing an opportunity. I'll say one thing about what you pointed out, because what later happened, I was in real estate, doing well in real estate, building a team, and that opened up other opportunities. Some I started investing in. It's one thing to invest with other people and just put your money into it, which is much more of a passive kind of thing. If you're investing with the right people, that can be a very fruitful endeavor. It's another when you're managing entities and putting together partners and doing that. That's a lot of work in itself. And so I started doing some of that on my own. I was running a real estate team. I was becoming a Keller Williams franchisee, getting in the laundromat business, starting a mobile app company. I was doing a lot of different things at the same time. That was a big learning on what not to do, right? And there's a big aha of learning on what not to do. It's really, I think doing different things is great, but it's important to go all in on the one thing and focus on that one until you take it to the point where you're going to exit, put other people in place in it, sell it, shut it down, whatever you're going to do. And, I'd done that in the past, and then I started doing all these different things, and now I've scaled back to where I'm doing one thing again.
Well, there's a philosophy that if you just pick one thing and you spend, 20, 30, 40 years on it, eventually it is going to be fruitful and it's going to compound. So yeah, it's really good to put blinders on and just settle on one thing, but you weren't stretched too thin. You were, you had different chapters, and now you're in the Laundry Luv chapter. But going back to the funny story, I grew up in commercial restaurant real estate. My dad is one of the biggest restaurant brokers here in Georgia. So one of the first things I did, for work was typing out listings, high visibility, high traffic. Yeah. And I would take the pictures and I'd write the descriptions of the listings. One of the restaurants that he put in business and we were very close with, I worked behind the counter at 14 years old. So I know exactly what you're talking about, but restaurants are tough. Margins are slim. A lot of his clients would ask me, Eric, why don't you go into the restaurant business and be like your dad? I'm like, you're not going to catch me doing that. It's the ones that are successful. They have either a high volume system or they have this unique taste. They're getting to that Michelin star and they just always have reservations because it's just that good.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's a tough, even today, I see things that look seemingly successful and you'll see them open for years and then they're closed. And then you think, wow, they seemed really successful to me. And including some, well-known chefs that will open up restaurants for concepts. And maybe the times that I went there, it looked like they were really busy and successful, but I'm there for a couple of hours and I'm not there for the entire stretch of the day to see what it looked like. So let me tell you, that's a business I'm glad to be out of.
I don't blame you. Yeah. Sometimes something, just doesn't work with the location. I've done walkthroughs on three different, the same location, but three different times, my dad flipping that same location. So the brokerage business can be great, right? Your dad's making money on that thing three different times doing leases and helping the landlord out. But there's a lesson on that one. Exactly. Well, a ton to build on. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you're also a dad of three, as am I. So tons of lessons. I'm going to be picking your pockets here in the future on, how to be a great dad. But tell me a little bit about what today looks like with family, real estate, and Laundry Luv.
Yeah. So my wife and I have worked together for years. She left the commercial banking industry back in, I think it was somewhere between 2012, 2014. She had been in commercial banking, walked away from that and came into the commercial real estate world with me when I was growing a teen. And so she's been in the real estate world since then. So we have a company, Wimberly Group Real Estate Advisors, that we run our real estate through. She runs that now as I'm full-time in the laundromat business. But so we do have that real estate team. I spend, I don't know, maybe 10% of my time in any given week, and probably less than that, honestly, working on real estate. But these days it's on a handful of things that we own or partners in, or that we're acquiring with some other partners. And I have a lot of inbound things that still come to me, but I have a couple of referral partners that I send that over to, and I'm just on for a little bit of client communication engagement. I have folks that handle that. I can't take the lead on it anymore.
For the brokerage side.
Yeah, not for the brokerage side. I can't. So I've got partners that will handle that, and I'll just basically refer that over to some referral partners. And then, family, I've only got one at home now. I've got two that have flown the nest. I have two that have graduated college already. So my daughter's getting her master's degree at Oklahoma State. My older son is working for GM Financial as a pricing analyst now. And our younger guy, he's in fourth grade. And so we still got one at home, and family's important. So last night I worked later till a little after 6 last night, but that was late for me. Like Amber came in and was like, hey, shut it down. It's time to come in. And I was just in the zone getting stuff done. And so now it's hanging out with families. He's in sports. He plays a couple of different sports, basketball and baseball. He's doing flag football. So he's doing a few different things now and just doing the enjoyment of what he's doing. And but business wise, it's all Laundry Luv these days. What's fun about Laundry Luv is it's a phenomenal ongoing business. It's a Trojan horse for service for us. My partners and I are both really, really service minded, and the laundromat allows us to get into communities and provide a deep level of service in those communities. So we're doing something at every one of our laundromats every single month. examples would be August is, back to school times for the kids. And so we will buy and fill as many backpacks as we can afford. And we'll hit up sponsors and other things to get even more leverage out of this. And we'll fill up backpacks with school supplies, and we'll have lines out the door of families with kids, wanting backpacks with school supplies. So we'll give away as many of those as we can. We'll partner with like a local health facility, do an online health screening. Come to the stores, park one of the little vans or buses, do an online health screening, do things like that. We do last month, Thanksgiving, we'll give away, $100 gift cards. We'll figure out, what each store can afford and how much we can do. We'll give away as many as we can, $100 gift cards so that families can go buy Thanksgiving dinner. And it is really impactful because a lot of these folks will come up to us like, if it wasn't for this, there wouldn't be, Thanksgiving dinner on the table. So we'll do that. We'll do free laundry days and give away free laundry. But there's something that we can do every month in the community. And what's fun is now it's driven by our team members at the stores that are in the trenches every day. Like, hey, let's do this. We should do this kind of thing. And that's the part that brings me probably the most energy is that part. The other cool thing about laundry is it's hand in hand with real estate. So a lot of times there are real estate opportunities for us to invest in real estate locations that we'll go and locate our laundromats. So that's what I'm doing full time. And this last year we became an official franchise. So now we're helping other people to get into the business. And that part's been super fun is for us. We got really good at what we were doing. We have 3, we're under construction for 4, then we're going to do 5 and 6. And so we've just started documenting all of our systems and really, really refining that so that we can create a little bit of a business in a box and help people to get into the business, avoid the many mistakes that we made over the past 6-7 years, and just get in and start firing all cylinders. So that part's been really cool too.
I love the concept that you guys are doing. Tell our viewers a little bit more on how you guys differentiate yourselves from just the typical laundromat.
Well, so when we got into the business, we studied the industry for a year. And I would say first, the reason we got into the business, it wasn't like we said, hey, let's get in the laundromat business. Yeah. We bought a shopping center in Abilene, Texas. So I said I had the KW franchise in Abilene, and I was like, man, real estate prices are good here. So we bought a shopping center, and I was just trying to backfill some vacancy. The center had half, it was half full, it was about 60% full, 40% vacant. And so I was trying to backfill a couple of these vacant suites. And I met a laundromat guy at a conference, and he looked at our center, said, look, Ken, this is one of the perfect locations, one of the greatest locations for a center I've seen. And I asked him to educate me what that meant. And so he was walking us through the demographics, the psychographics, the number of renters that are in the area, the overall density, the traffic counts, the visibility, all this stuff that now is second nature to us. But I didn't know what laundromats look for at all back then. And so we thought, great, we've got a great center. Let's get an operator in here. We couldn't get I don't know where you go find a laundromat operator, honestly. So we were looking, we were putting the words out. We called the laundromat distributors, put the words out, but we were in Abilene, Texas, and no one had a laundromat operator that was just raising their hand saying, yeah, we want to go. So eventually we said, let's look into this business on our own and see, would we want to become the operator? From what we could tell in our early investigation, it was an industry that had some really healthy profit margins to it. That it was an industry that did good in the community. So we liked that part of it. It had some healthy profit margins, and it was something that wasn't hands off, but you could make it, it wasn't like running a restaurant where you got 30 different employees in the restaurant. You can do this with 3 or 4 employees running it. Mm-hmm. And so we said, all right, let's look into this. As we were studying the industry, one thing I noticed almost everywhere we went was it was never dads. It was always moms in doing the laundry, and the moms with their kids would be in. And the kids, I don't know about your kids, my kids get bored real fast. And so they're in there just being bored, opening up and closing, washers and dryers and pushing around laundry carts and climbing on things, just being kids and being bored. That got me thinking. I have a friend that owns almost 300 Sonics, and he does his Sonics very differently. Most Sonics, when you look or think about, they're tiny little postage stamp lots that you've got barely enough room for the drive-through to go around, and you just got head and parking on those things. He doesn't do that. He buys acre lots on corner locations, and he puts in like a playscape area for kids to play. He does sand volleyball courts in his Sonics. So he wants people to have like leisure time there and spend their time and spend more dollars while they're there. And I said, I want to do what he's doing. I said, I really want to be like the Chick-fil-A of laundromats is what I wanted to become. And so we started thinking, how do we do that? And so in every one of our laundromats, what we do, we put a children's playscape in the laundromat. So we do soft flooring in there. We put a TV up with children's programming. We put interactive games for the kids to play. So blocks to stack, games like, checkers and things for kids to play. And then we stock bookshelves with books for children to read. What we learned through this process also was that childhood literacy in areas where laundromats are located, which are generally more impoverished areas, is like at an all-time low. It's terrible. There's a stat that says 1 in 300 households has a book for their child to read in these impoverished areas. I mean, I see a bunch of books behind you. I suspect your kids have a bunch. Like there's books behind me. My kids got.
I have 100 books to give away that are upstairs that are kids' books.
Man, send them to me, brother. We will take them and we will put them to good use. We will give them to children. And so we bring in books every month. We pay to have books come in. We go pick up free books from other places, and we give away books to every child that comes through the store. And just trying to make a small dent in childhood literacy. And so that right there, when parents come in, okay, they come into our store, they're beautiful, they're bright, they're clean, they're spacious, they're new, they're shiny. Even 6 years old, you walk in, our store still feels new. It's got nice flooring, nice lighting, beautiful bathrooms, like bathrooms you'd be happy to let your wife or kid go into. And then you look over and there's this kids play area. It's got like, red, white, and blue tile on the floor. And it's just really fresh. And anyway, people love it. We love it. And it's one way that we try to engage with the community and help families.
Yeah, you guys make it the extension of the home, which in the past laundromats are not. You're like, I don't want to leave my house to go to this cold and dry. It's kind of like a jail cell, You're like, I don't want to go there. And it's funny because we just got back from Mexico, and it's the same thing in Japan, where in the airports there's a play area.
Yeah. And
America specifically doesn't have that. Like I've never been to an airport in the US where there's a play area where we can, we're eating, we're having a meal, and the kids can go play. They're exhausted. They need to tire down a little bit before they get on the plane. And, the US isn't the only country that doesn't have it, but you're bringing that family element into your laundromats and making it a comfortable place to do something that has to be done every week.
It's a chore, right? I mean, honestly, it's a chore that you've got to do every week. The most recent thing we've done in our stores, which has been a huge hit, now we're upgrading it because of a lot of big folks that will come in and sit down. But we started putting rocking chairs in our laundromat. Nice. They are a hit. And so we're looking, if anyone's listening, you got a company that produces high quality rocking chairs, reach out to me. We're looking for some upgraded, more heavy duty rocking chairs that won't break the bank. We can find them at $1,000 a chair, but I'm looking for some that are somewhat affordable and heavy duty. But man, the rocking chairs have been great because it's trying to make it comfortable for folks. When you come in, want to make it comfortable. You're doing a chore that isn't exactly the funnest thing to do. So come in here and at least enjoy yourself while you're in our store.
That's incredible. I'll definitely be sending you those books, and might need to get you over here to Georgia for a franchise opportunity. But
we'd love to be in Georgia, Alabama, Georgia. We're looking for that.
Okay, we should talk after.
Yep.
Let's go back to the family aspect, because I want to pick your brain, because you have two successful kids that have flown the coop. Do you have a formula that got them to where they're at today? Some fatherly advice for us dads out there?
Oh, brother, we could talk about this all day long. This is what I love. So I grew up in the 70s. I was born in 71. I was what they call a latchkey kid.
What's that? Explain that to us.
Latchkey, it's what they used to say where basically your parents were never around. A lot of it was, I think that terminology came from single parent households where the parent was working a lot. So the oversight was very minimal and the kids could just go do what they wanted. So I grew up like that, and also grew up with the kind of language of, do what I say, not what I do. I grew up with that. I grew up with, kids are meant to be, seen and not heard. A lot of these little things back then. I did not like that as a kid. I felt like I had something to say. I had a voice. Don't get me wrong. My parents loved me. This was just the way of the world back then.
The evening news at like 10 p.m. would say, "Hey, don't forget your kids."
Yeah.
That's not exactly what they said, but it was like,
it's kind of like that.
Before,
No, that was really our rule. It was like, okay, be home within 30 minutes after it gets dark, and we'd be gone all day. And there's something beautiful to that in some way. But all that said, as my kids were growing up, from the very onset, I swore, and I heard all the time growing up, because I said so, because it's the way it is, or because I said so. I said, I will never, ever tell my kids because I said so. And I really do think, Eric, that as I look at the emotional intelligence and the success of my kids, and part of it has come from since they were infants and could start to talk, I never used baby talk. I would talk to them just as I'm talking to you. I would just talk to them and engage them and get their brains working.
Yeah.
And man, the relationship I have with them is incredible. It is so incredible. They're engaging. Adults always tell me all the time, like, my God, your kids are so mature and they're so engaged. And don't get me wrong, they're kids. I had all kinds of problems and all kinds of, like with kids. They're not perfect, but they are really wonderful, well-adjusted kids. They made it through a divorce. Their mom and I, the older kids, divorced when they were like 8, 9 years old. And I give Melissa a lot of credit, my ex-wife, that she always put the kids first. We would never come at each other or talk bad about each other. But so I will say, successful kid recipe, talking to them like they're humans that they are, like they're little adults, or you're growing them into little adults. Not that you don't want them to be a kid and have fun, but you don't need to talk to them like a baby or talk down to them. Engaging with them, asking their opinion, but then teaching them about communication. That has been that was hard for my older son, because his natural style would be to shut down. He would get angry or frustrated, and he would not want to talk or share his feelings or any of that. He would just want to shut down. And so it was a lot of work for me to get him to talk about expressing his feelings, expressing his opinion. But where that worked is when I would get him to come out and say, like, hey, this is why I got so angry, and this is what was bothering me. Man, sometimes the light bulb would go on with me, and I'd be like, dude, I didn't even see that perspective. And I would like change my viewpoint or change my idea. And I think him being able to see that, whoa, I shared this, and then you listened to it. You didn't just put it down or say, well, that opinion doesn't have value. I would listen to it and then sometimes modify my own behavior or thoughts or process based on what I learned from him. And I think that was so important for them to see that. And it's helped them to realize, okay, I need to express what's going on inside of me so that you understand what's going on. It's communication. And I tell kids that are going to college, if they don't know what they're doing, go get a degree in communication, because there's nothing more important than being able to really thoroughly communicate and learn emotional intelligence at a high level. From there, you can get into sales, you can get into anything you want to, and really go rule the world.
That's so important. And I'm talking to my kids as well about communication, especially at this age, 2, 4, and 6, they don't know what's going on, and their emotions get the best of them. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Talk to me. Before you get upset, take a deep breath, talk to me, tell me how you're feeling, and let's figure out a resolution for it. And I think that just scales up and up, even to the client and the customer level, where a client is a little upset about something or wants some clarity. It's the same for restaurants. You go to the table, as soon as they sit down, you go to the table, you say, hey, even if you're busy, give me 1 second. And that dialogue makes such an impact. So I love hearing that.
Yeah, that, boy, you hit the nail on the head in the restaurant. I get it. You get a busy, if they'll just say, I'm so sorry, I'll be right back. Just give me acknowledgement, right? Just give me that. So
that's all you ask for, is someone that you understand that someone's listening to you. Now, give me, before we pivot, I want you to give me a quick tidbit for the fathers and moms out there that are raising their kids. They're maybe a single parent. They've gone through a divorce, because it can go a lot differently. Do you have maybe, what worked for you guys to raise your kids effectively in different households?
I would still like today to write a book with my wife and my ex-wife about co-parenting after divorce, because I feel like the three of us did it really, really well. And it was not without its challenges and struggles to get through. I don't want to have people go, oh, yeah, easy for you. It was certainly challenged. But I think truly putting the kids' well-being first and foremost is so important. I mean, I've got a good friend of mine. He hadn't seen his older kids in years because his wife implanted into them that he was a bad guy and he was toxic. And really it's the reverse that's true from my perspective, from what I can see. And it's such a sad thing for the kids. I've seen that happen way too many times. And so I would say for anyone going through that, I know people going through it right now. It's just, if you can prioritize your relationship with the children, realize that, like, man, you're going to be a co-parent with this person, depending on how old the kids are, for the next 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to be a co-parent with them on that. And it's really, really important that you put aside your own differences, even if there's like infidelity or, something that feels very jaded to you. If you can get beyond that and focus on the children and focus on, like, look in the mirror every once in a while. That takes a lot for us to do, to look in the mirror and say, okay, what's my DNA on all these problems or all these issues here? Most of us, it's always the other person. And I think the more we can own our part of any situation, the better the situation becomes. And so for each of us or each person, if you can look at your own situation and figure out, hey, what am I adding to this? What can I do to make it better? How can we work together for the children? So important. And communication, getting on the same page on a few things. So difficult for a kid when you have two different sets of rules in one place versus the other place. Melissa, my ex, and I were great about that, saying, hey, this is going to be kind of how we agree on rules across, so that the kids know the expectations in both places. Not it's different here than the other place.
Yeah, you have to align on not only rules but values and having that structure. I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of this co-parenting where you go from cold to hot to uncomfortable to comfortable or dry. And I think you got the formula down. I mean, it worked, right? I mean, I know there was challenges, and with anything, there's challenges, but I think that's some great advice.
Another just little bit of advice I'd give to anyone is, man, third-party counseling, having a person that can just be a sounding board and listen, give you nonpartisan feedback and thoughts, is a lot of people avoid that for different reasons. I think it's been super valuable in my life. And sometimes you're able to say things in the presence of a counselor that you wouldn't otherwise say without anger or a different tone or something. And I think that's the true beauty of a counselor, is just to, like, tone down the rhetoric and just let's have just facilitate true communication. So to find the right counselor and do that is really important.
Yeah, it's like a non-legal mediator, someone that can just be there and be the adult in the room and allow you to put your ego aside, because that's really all it is the complexities of it. And when it gets confusing, it's because someone has brought their ego into the room, most likely, or held on to something that they just need to let go of, and not necessarily forgive that person, but just forget for the sake of the kids.
Truth.
Tons of insights. Love hearing your background. We always ask our guests to give us that growth under pressure moment. Tell us about that time or a couple times in business or a season that you weren't sure what tomorrow would look like or how it would play out, and the lessons that you learned from it.
Yeah. I mean, a big one that comes to mind I briefly mentioned earlier that when I run several different businesses at the same time, I was launching a mobile app. And I told you off camera that I've been journaling to my kids for years, and I created a mobile app that was a digital home for parents to be able to capture moments, memories, and lessons that they could one day pass down to their children, and it would be there for generations. It's a beautiful app. It's a great product. It really worked well. It was just, the UI was incredible. Our users, the power users, I mean, they absolutely loved it. All that said, I could never get it to truly scale. It was, I did not come from the mobile app business. I put together a really good team in place, but we were trying multiple channels. I was on 75, 80 podcasts out there. I was on news programs. And so there's a lot of exposure to it. And we had users, but to get an app to be successful, you need hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers. And we were not near that. We were at 10,000 with, a couple thousand active. So all that said, I had built this business, initially bootstrapped it, but then in order to get it scaling and grow and redo my stuff, I raised some funds. We raised a total of about $800,000, and $300,000 of that was mine and my mom's that we had put in, and $500,000 was investor money. But these weren't random investors; these were close friends of mine and people that believed in me, believed in the mission, and we had to make the decision to shut the business down. It's not like selling a real estate asset. Hey, you're going to get your principal back or most of your principal back. This is, the money's gone. We wound it down, and what little money was left was there to shut down the business and take care of everything we needed to do. And man, that pressure, the day I had to call those investors, there were 8 different investors. It was one of the longest days of my life, just dreading what, they got started in the morning and called these folks. And I will say this, to the T, 8 people out of 8 told me, you know what, Ken, they said, we knew what we were signing up for. We knew this was, it's a tech startup. Kind of, we get the odds on tech startups. But if you're a startup founder, you do not think you're the odds that are going to fail, right? You think you got to believe that you're going to be the one to win. And so they said, look, we knew what we were signing up for. It's a tech startup. We believed in you. We believed in your mission and your product, what you're doing. We still think it's a great idea. And, you'll get them next time. And man, I was so grateful for that kindness that I received from each one of them. And, multiple of them have gone on to reinvest with me in other projects. And I serve on the board of one of these guys' foundation. And so I think what that taught me, and it took, honestly, it took me a while to reap the lessons from that day, because I went through, you lose that much money for people. I went through about a 6-month major depression, and it was rough going through shutting that. Again, my son at the time was 14, 15 years old. We were having talk about how great he's doing now. Yeah. We're having all kinds of challenges. I got that going on. I've got the business shut down. It's a rough period. But looking back on that now, what I see is I was always fully transparent with everyone. So there were monthly investor updates going out. I kept everyone updated in communication, never hid things from anyone. There's just, I was honest with my life, honest with them on what was going on, and transparent about it. And they were very gracious on the backside of that. So anyway, I learned a lot about, showing up as the person. That was not always the case in my life. Okay. I haven't always been this person I am today. I've grown into this person from making mistakes, from doing the wrong things, from being non-transparent, from doing these other things that, man, I've woken up and going, man, who are you? And today I really like the guy that's looking back in the mirror.
Wow. Well, not to be cliche, but the truth does set you free. Those little lies, they add up and they just create a snowball of terror. Take us back, if you don't mind. Tell me a little bit more about that period of depression and how you got out of it.
Man, Eric, it was rough. I mean, it was really rough. I mean, I told you I'm a pretty transparent guy, and this was, I mean, I knew what I was going to do to end my days. Like I knew what that looked like and how to do it to where it looked like an accident, so that it wouldn't be so hard on my family. Right. I was there. And, I got to the point, a couple of things happened on that. I was struggling with my son. He was going through a lot of things that were, really, really hard on me and our family. And we had taken him for counseling for lots of different things. And a friend of mine from Front Row Dads actually suggested to me, as I was telling him all these symptoms, he said, does he have ADD? And I was like, yeah, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. And he said, no. He said, is he on medicine? I said, no, we never wanted to put him on medicine, because we knew when he was in his, 10 years old, he had ADD. And he said, I agree with that when they're young. But he said, as you get older, he said, untreated ADHD shows up with the same things as anxiety and depression. And so that was really interesting. And so we ended up getting him diagnosed, or took him for diagnostics, got diagnosed with ADD, got him on medicine right as he left for college. And man, it was night and day. He was calling me. He was engaging. He was like long conversations. I'm like, who are you? Because this is the guy that didn't want to communicate, right? Didn't want to say anything. Right. And it was so life-changing. So I went and got brain scans. I mean, I was to the point where I was like, I need to figure something out. And so I went to the Amen Clinic in Dallas, got brain scans to figure out, do I have ADD? I'm pretty certain I do, but at the same time, so I got brain scans to see, do I need to go on medicine? What should I do? And they actually put me on supplements. They said, look, your brain is not as active as it should be in these different areas. And that's typically you're lacking certain supplements. And, it took a couple of months on that, but it wasn't like I just wake up and like, oh, hey, everything's perfect. But it just slowly over a couple of months, I felt normal. And so now over the last, from then for the next year going forward, I'm like all about supplements and dialing in and paying attention. I ended up with a nutrition coach I talk to once a month, and she's helped me dial it in even further. And it's been several years now that, and I've gone through a lot of stress, but I've not had any signs of like depression, anxiety, those things that were showing up at that period of my life. And I credit a lot to eating pretty healthy, taking my supplements. I exercise every day, but I was exercising all the time back then, and I just fell off the wagon when it went bad. But I'm back into regular exercise, just being healthy, physically and mentally healthy. So anyway, it was a journey, but I will say that the supplements made a big difference. So it wasn't meds. It wasn't like, hey, go take these anxiety meds. Nope. It was just natural supplements that were dialed into what my brain needed that I had tested.
That's really good. And it sounds like a lot of it had to do with creating and solidifying that relationship with your family as well, right? You get so much fulfillment out of your kids and having that relationship. Yeah. Have you gone the peptide route? Because I mention it because I'm trying BPC 157. Have you heard of it?
It's a popular one. Yeah. I know several friends that have used that for different things. I just was at a conference not long ago, and there was a deep dive into peptides. And so there's a few that are on my list. I've not started taking any yet, but I was like, ooh, boy, that little combination right there could work good. And I'm so into just health and trying to dial in my health these days. So the peptides are on my list, and 157 is one of them.
Yeah, so I would absolutely recommend it. The reason being, and I got it for my back. I played football in college, and I'm doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. I've always been an athlete, but like I get out of bed these days, and I can't even, bend over to rinse my mouth after brushing my teeth. I mean, it hurts, and I went on this, couple month peptide plan, and I'm happy to send you and share with our viewers the resource. But it's BPC 157 and TB 500. They call it the Wolverine blend because it helps you heal faster. There's not a ton of research on the synergies between the two, but by themselves, they are very effective. The question is, how long do you take it? What are the effects long term? Because they're so new.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'll say is I've had brain fog almost my whole life, and it's almost completely gone, where I wake up with a clear mind, and it is a game changer. So
good for you. So a friend of mine recently got stem cell injections, and he got them. I can't remember what the issue he was having, which is the reason he went and got it. He got them in Dallas too, because I know some people that got in LA, but ended up getting them in Dallas. And he's like me. We both went to military school together back in the 80s, and we have what I call CRS disease, but you can't remember squat. So, but we've both never been able to remember anything. But he says, Kenny said, he said the craziest side effect of this. He said, yeah, it's helping my issue wherever he had. He said, brain fog, memory. He said, my memory is so good right now.
It's incredible.
It's interesting what can happen.
And there's some that like give you more energy or reduce brain fog. There's hundreds out there, and a ton of research on them. And to your point on stem cells, this solution right now is my affordable. Yeah. Versus spending thousands.
This guy's got the money to get the stem cells.
Yeah. I don't blame him at all. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that. And there's a lot to be said on it, and a ton of research. But thank you for sharing that story. I mean, definitely heart-wrenching. And, I've spent a lot of time with startups. I've seen the good and the bad, the billion-dollar exits, and then the shutdowns. I've seen it all. And right now I have a consumer product, a consumer app on the iPhone and Android. We've raised about $2 million. It's a messaging app, private messaging app called Freedom Chat. Would love to share more about it. We can talk offline.
Nice.
But we are doing big things, but getting it off the ground is difficult to get people to believe in the mission and using it. Yeah. It's not easy, but I want to talk a little bit about Laundry Luv as a franchise, the good, the bad, and kind of the truth of building a franchise system, for you as a founder and for the operator stepping into this model. What advice do you have, and how's it going so far?
Man, it was a lot to get it in place, and I knew that was going to be the case. For us, the trickiest thing about, because it was not super difficult to put the franchise offering together. We hired a company to help us with that. They did a ton of interviewing with us and then they did a lot of the back end legal work to go put it together. Mm-hmm. So that part in itself was not terribly hard. They had a good process that they helped us go through. It was a lot of work to put together, just, from everything we were doing intuitively to then truly systemize it and put it in documented processes, put video systems together with it. That took a great deal of work, which is great though, because we needed it too. It's like it moved us from being entrepreneurial to purposeful. And, but the tough part for us was just, we're real estate guys, and the way we had our company structured was like real estate deals. We had this group over here and this entity, this and this entity, and this one owned two things over here. And to unwind all of that, to put it all together in the proper legal structure to set us up for growth, that was the big lift. And that took us about a year with a really, really skilled law firm to help us go through and do that. And then just talking to our investors and saying, all right, we're unwinding you out of here. We're putting you into here, and you're going to own a piece of everything. And so that was the trickiest part. So that was, frankly, that was my entire 2024 was spent working on putting the franchise offering together and then restructuring our company legally and working with our investor group to get that done. It was a lot. It was fun, but man, it was in the weeds.
So the franchise piece, I know it's a heavy lift, but you went from a mobile app to now a franchise. What's the goal for the franchise?
Yeah. So before we decided to become a franchise, like my partner and I, we had two co-founders, and one is the CEO of our company. The other guy and I were, I mean, look, this was started as a side hustle. Okay. It was started to fill a real estate vacancy as kind of a side hustle. And then we ended up with from one to, two to three. We opened up our first one in 2019, our second, third in 2022. And then they started to get some legs underneath them. They started doing really well. One of my co-founders was so busy with his real estate ventures. He's like, look, I can't spend any time on this. I don't have any time with it. And I had then shut down Legacy of Love. And I was like, what am I going to do next? Am I going to go back into real estate full time, or am I going to build this laundromat company and come into that? And it was really starting to take off. And by 2023, we shut down the app in 2022. Mm-hmm. And so the CEO and I got together. I said, well, what do we want? What do we want to be when we grow up? Do we want to own 6, 7, 8 of these just outright? It would take us a while to get there because each one of these takes between $1 million and $2 million to launch, and you got to put 30% equity. So let's call it 1.5. That's $450,000 per location in equity. I'm not a trust fund guy that's got $10 million sitting in the trust fund. So that's a lot of money to come put into each store, and then it takes a couple years before you get to cash flow. We'll say 18 months to get to cash flow positive, and then a couple years where you 2 to 3 years where you start really cranking off money. So that money's tied up for a while, and we said, well, we can do that, and it will be a slow grow for us, but in 10 years it looks great. I said, or we can make a much bigger impact by becoming a franchise. And we first looked at it as joint ventures. Honestly, we were like, hey, we're going to joint venture with people, and we can but our attorneys were telling us, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And they're like, that's a franchise. And so we decided, okay, by becoming a franchise, we won't have like 5 or 10 stores. We could get to 100 or 200 stores and really make an impact. We start talking about childhood literacy. All right, at 100 stores, each store giving away as many books away as we give away a month. That's 52,000 books a year that we're giving away in childhood literacy, making an impact. And from there, who knows where it goes from. So our current goal is to grow to 100 stores in about the next, we're about 4.5 years away from that goal right now. So our current goal is to grow to 100 stores. And from there, we reevaluate and see, okay, now that we're here, where do we go next?
That's incredible. I know this could impact so many countries that don't have that warm feeling. I don't want to throw that out. I know you got the U.S. first.
You just said, so I've got 2 team members in the Philippines, and one of them has been with me for 12 years. The other's been with me for a couple years now. And I've already been talking to them about this. I'm like, I want the Philippines to be one of the first countries we launch outside the United States. And I want them to be a part of helping me launch that endeavor. And I want it to create generational wealth in their family to help and then serve the people in their communities.
Wow, it's incredible. My wife is Brazilian. Brazil is another country that could definitely use this because there's a lot of people using laundromats.
Oh, yeah. And they're not nice over there. They're not.
No.
And so, obviously there's a lot of different things politically to navigate in each different country. Sure. But, man, there's going to be someone that we bring onto our team. That's going to be their thing. They're going to be like, I want to lead that effort. And so that's it might be someone that's listening to this podcast that says, man, I want to lead that effort. So
I may have someone for you too, some Brazilians, and we have a team in the Philippines as well. So we definitely should talk offline. But I before I let you go, I want to ask you one question about your childhood. The one thing I've noticed is that not all successful people are created equal. There's something about their childhood, something specific, a lesson, an example, a parent or a mentor. You told me a little bit about your childhood already and the values that and not just the values, but the lessons that you were taught. But can you pinpoint an influence from your early years that still shapes you and how you show up today?
Yeah. My parents were very working class parents. And but my grandfather, my mother's father, um, was a construction worker. And he had an eighth grade education. He literally left school in the eighth grade to go work on the farm because he had to go work on the farm. And then as he got older, he was a construction worker. And I think my uncle tells me this story. My grandfather passed in 95, but he tried to start his business 3 different times and failed. But he kept trying to be an entrepreneur and start a construction business and failed. Now, the 4th time, it started to take off, and he started to have some real success. And he built a very, very sizable steel erection business. So he would go erect big buildings, and he would do the steel structure in these buildings. In fact, if you ever seen the chapel at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, that was, I believe that was the first major job his company had done when he had launched his company. And I've got a picture of that in my house that I have up today that is in memoriam to him. And so his example as going out there and building a company. But then that led to my uncle. My uncle went and served in Vietnam, came back, worked for his dad, my grandfather. And it was really weird. Like my uncle, early 90s, like left that company. I was like, whoa, why would you leave this company? You got this. And went off to start some medical device company. And then he was he was just doing this weird stuff. Well, I look at that weird stuff. It was all entrepreneurial stuff is what my uncle was doing. And it was really, really cool. I mean, he would have these ideas from little grocery lists that you would put as a magnet on your refrigerator. He had all these little things. Well, that ended up taking him a couple of different startup ideas into the development business. And so then he got real estate development for the rest of his life. He's still been in that. He's actually watching the largest project he's ever done come to fruition right now. It's really cool to see. And, but my uncle pointed out to me, he said, do you realize that in our family that we have so many branches of entrepreneurs in our family? And it started like for me with my grandfather, but my uncle was saying that it was even his father that had a gas station business, right? And so I think if you just see an example out there and you can like really watch that, it doesn't have to be in your family. It happened to be my grandfather, but I've seen others that it was, the man across the street that kind of poured into him a little bit or just gave him a little bit of advice right there. And now, like literally I've got multiple cousins that are entrepreneurs. I've got cousins that own daycares, cousins that have started tractor supply shops and different things. And it's really, really cool to see the entrepreneurial spirit take off and run through so many people in my family and outside of my family as well.
That influence is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to close real quick with some rapid fire questions and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
First one, what's one metric you check every single week without fail in business or in life?
Yeah, I love it. I'll tell you in business, it's the number of books that we give away. It's actually on our KPI tracker in Laundry Luv. Wow. Number of books that each store is giving away. That's
incredible. Okay. Speaking of books, name one book, podcast, or speech recommended, you'd recommend to most founders or franchisees who are under pressure.
Man, it's hard for me to say one, so I'll give you a couple. Atomic Habits is a book that I think everyone should read. One. Incredible book on habit stacking. I just recently finished 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom, and I think that book is so critically important for highlighting what's really, really important in life. And then I'll go with one that's pretty incredible about following what's really, really meant to be in your life, and that's The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
It's such a good one.
Yeah, such a great one.
Amazing books. I wish I had another Alchemist. I've been searching for that, that second one that I can jump back into.
Chop Wood, Carry Water. I don't know if you've read that, but it's pretty great little book. Okay. I usually read both of those every year.
Okay, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna order it after this.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Complete this sentence for me. A founder under pressure should always
meditate.
Beautiful. Ken, thank you so much for joining me. I feel like we could talk for hours. Really enjoyed having you on the podcast today.
This has been a great conversation. Thanks so much. It's easy to chat with you, and I love what you're up to and doing. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Ken. That's it for today's episode of Growth Under Pressure. I'm Eric Josovitz from Adapt CFO, and I hope these insights help you tackle your biggest scaling challenges. If you want to help other founders find the show, give us a quick follow or a share. Thanks for listening, and I hope to catch you next time.